Oh my goodness, it happened again. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am officially the worst YouTuber on this platform. Nah, correction. I am the most committed, inactive YouTuber on this platform, bro. Look, man, I'm bad at being consistent, okay? I can sit here and complain about it all day. I used to do that back when I did YouTube in like middle school, elementary, because I would formulate a whole posting schedule and be like, all right, guys, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna post this on Mondays, this on Tuesdays, and then just go inactive for 2 months after doing that shit for a week. So you know what? I'm gonna just say it right now. I'm posting every day for the rest of my life. You know what? Yeah, exactly. Till I die. There will be a video out every single day, and I'm not gonna break it. Also, I don't know if I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that I've been having audio issues, or not audio issues, but trying to figure out, like, basically the audio software that I use to record my cut commentaries is not the same one as I use for music. I just got this really crispy XLR mic. I know you hear it. Well, the shit won't work on my goddamn stupid ass fuck ass software that I use to record my stupid bitch commentary. So now I have to record on my music software, and it's just not the same. It's less convenient. Yeah, and this is my first time trying it. This very video right here that you're hearing, isn't that pretty neat? But it's ass. But let me stop. The only reason I'm rambling is because I wanted to make this little one topic video to get myself back into it. And you know, the basketball season's back, so I once again get the privilege of watching my poverty franchise lose every single night. And obviously, talking about the Magic is not going to give me any viewers. No casual or true NBA fan wants to hear about that shit. But guess what? I'm gonna do it anyway. Fuck you. But I'm not here to talk about their first 3 games, especially because, well, they frustrated me just a little bit. I'm here to tell you to invest your stock right now. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you've probably read the title, unless you got like autoplay on or some shit, but why would my video pop up? I don't know. But yeah, anybody who watched Kenny do rebuilds know that his motto over there is you get assets and you flip them. Orlando has done a really good job at that first part, and I would be curious to see like some sort of graded potential statistic amongst all the teams in the league, specifically the young teams, because I really do think that Orlando kind of clears. You have to understand what I mean. Oh wait, wrong. I was talking into the wrong mic. Hang on a minute. You gotta understand what I mean here, because some of these younger teams like Detroit and San Antonio and maybe Houston, they might have better rosters, or at least rosters that might win them more games this year. And I'm more specifically Detroit. Like, Detroit probably has a better roster, and they have players that are more ready. Let's put it that way. I'm telling you that in terms of a long-term scope, Orlando has got something here. I'm serious. I'm just gonna dive right into this shit and just start reading you the roster and giving you a bunch of important information as to why, okay? I'm not gonna make many cuts, alright? Let's start. Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba, Paolo Banchero, Bobo, Wendell Carter Jr., Markelle Fultz, RJ Hampton, Gary Harris, Kevon Harris, Caleb Houston, Jonathan Isaac, Chuma Okeke, Terrence Ross, Admiral Schofield, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner. So for the start of the season, they sported a starting lineup of Jalen Suggs, Terrence Ross, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. Suggs went down with an ankle injury in the second game, but Cole Anthony came back for the second game. So Cole Anthony got the start against Boston in the third game. Now, where it gets tricky here is the bench. Orlando's starting 5 actually outplayed their opponent in 2 of their first 3 games. The first game and then the third game against Boston. That is, of course, just in terms of production. Sorry, I should have mentioned that off the rip. But where it does get tricky is with the bench right now, because they've really had no help on the bench. A lot of this is due to injury, but let's just break it down more, okay? So you got Terrence Ross. Let me remind you of the starting 5 again right now, with Jalen Suggs being out, okay? Cole Anthony, Terrence Ross, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. The first thing you notice about that lineup, doesn't matter who the guards are, it's big, and that has evidently been their clear advantage in all 3 of their games up to this point, is that they're bigger than their opponents. Second chance points. And defensively, they've been pretty good, for especially in the first half. They've broken down a little bit in the second half, but now that's actually not true. Let me back up, because defensively, all the pieces are there for them to be a really good defensive team. But like in their game against Boston, I mean, just situationally bad defense, bad transition defense. And I'm gonna get on Coach Mosley in a little bit and get to the coaching a little bit down the line, but yeah, man, it's there though. The main thing is that they have certainly destroyed basically everybody in second chance points rather, and so that's been what's kept them in games a lot, because shooting is a visible issue with them, and of course, you know, like I said, the bench play right now and the injuries, specifically Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, and Gary Harris. Throw those three on the bench of this team in those 3 games, and we got a different conversation. We're talking about the bench against Boston being Chuma Okeke, good player, Mo Bamba and Wendell Carter Jr. to me are both good at their own individual things. I think Mo Bamba deserves more minutes. He only got 12. But Wendell Carter Jr. is definitely the better and more impactful player overall, but he's got some things to work on shooting. But then, like, the rest of your bench was Bol, RJ Hampton, Keon Harris, and then that's really it. And so, like, I mean, here's how I see it, right, in an ideal world. I think when you look at the guard pool, right, and I won't put RJ Hampton in this because as much as RJ Hampton has shown improvement this year and he's not finally doesn't look just like completely a high school player, he's a little bit more impactful. He's not really going to be a rotational piece for us when it's all said and done. He might, but probably not. So when you take him out of the picture, the guard pool looks something like Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz. Those are the 3 that can really be true point guards for you. And then, of course, Terrence Ross, Gary Harris, and company are your true wings, your true shooting guards, rather. And so when I look at those 3 point guards, Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, and Markelle Fultz, to me, I think Cole Anthony is the most valuable of those 3 because he has shown me that he can score the ball at a crazy clip, put the ball in the bucket, do it consistently, and that he can be in a scoring role from anywhere and in any situation. And this is where it gets interesting with the Magic and these guards specifically. This is the biggest question mark, is the guards. Because, look, I'll lay the line on one thing. The 2 most valuable players on Orlando right now are Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. I think those are the 2 that are most likely to blossom in the stars because they need a guy, and it'll most likely be Paolo, but it also could be Franz. Franz could be a co-star. Franz could just be another rotational piece. We don't know. Franz's ceiling is high, but he might not pan out to get too much better. But regardless, he's a very good player. But when you look at the guards, though, okay, each one is kind of good at their own specific thing. They all have their own different skill set. They bring something different to the game. So, like, in a sense, they could all be in a rotation. But I think when you look at the talent scheme and you look at the scope of that, like, it won't be realistic to keep all 3 of them down the line. And, like, we have to figure out which one is going to be the most valuable. I said Cole Anthony is the best pure scorer, and I believe that. He can score from basically any level. He's got the most dog in him. And, you know, he's, especially when you look at this team and you think of how much we need consistent shooters, and that's why, you know, I can't wait till Gary Harris, great 3-and-D guy, but specifically great spot up shooter. When he comes back, that'll be huge off our bench. And that's why I need Cole to be a big part of this team, because if Paolo and Franz and Wendell and company are running the offense, or the offense is running through him, then, you know, Cole being on the opposite wing is a problem, but he's also a guy we can run the offense through. But on the contrary, he's right now probably the biggest liability of the 3 on defense. He's smaller, he's got good speed, he's not bad at staying in front of people, but he's actually an above average rebounder at his height and at the guard position. But in terms of perimeter defense and actually being an impactful player on that end, Jalen is easily the best defender out of the 3. He's the most tenacious. And yeah, he's the best perimeter defender. He's the most impactful defender. He's super athletic, but there's just so many flaws on the offensive end. He's super raw, is basically what I'm trying to say. He doesn't have much control at all. Is clearly a super athletic and strong base, well-controlled player, but he doesn't have any kind of control at all. He hasn't seemed to figure out how to use his bag to get into space, and his jumper is, you can tell he's a good shooter, but he hasn't found it yet. He actually got hot in the 3rd quarter against Detroit, and I was like, that's what we need from you, Jalen. But he's the biggest liability on offense out of the 3 between Markelle, Cole Anthony, and him. And on to Markelle, he might be the most valuable offensive player. I know I said Cole Anthony's the best scorer. Markelle is easily the best playmaker. His impact in terms of when he has the ball in his hands, the game just gravitates. You know those playmakers where the game just gravitates to you? Yeah, that's Markelle. He is an unreal finisher, and the way that he looked when he came back for those few games at the very end of last season, man, it's hard not to salivate over what Markelle can do when healthy, but he has to stay healthy. And here's the biggest flaw with Markelle: he's a bad perimeter shooter. He can't shoot on the outside, and if we're gonna play through Paolo and Franz, and then we might need a shooter in that position. Now, here's where it gets funky. The way I see it, if you're building around a guy like Paolo or Franz, Cole Anthony's the best to put on in a lineup with him, right? Because you need spacing, you need shooting. But if you run a lineup of Markelle and Cole at the 2, then we're talking being able to use them both, ? Having Jalen Suggs come off the bench, run the bench unit, ? Or you go Markelle, Jalen Suggs, and have Cole Anthony, because I think Cole Anthony is if Cole Anthony's your 6th man, he's built for that role to just come off and give you 20. Like, I genuinely believe Cole could average, he would be a 6th man of the year candidate without a single doubt in my mind. Like, he can average 20 off the bench, I guarantee it, especially in a role like that with Paolo and Franz and those guys if they blossom. And like, when in doubt, no matter what lineup you have a guy like Terrence Ross and you have Gary Harris, those guys to put in those positions. And Franz and Paolo and Wendell are all capable of playmaking and having the offense run through them. And that's just what's so great about this lineup, is the versatility. You see the versatility, you see it. And yeah, I mentioned Orlando having the potential to be a really good defensive team. I mean, I didn't mention that Jonathan Isaac is probably going to be back in a couple months. If he can stay healthy, man, I mean, he's just a player, bro. Like, he's one of the best defenders in the league when he's healthy. He was playing like a DPOY candidate, not DPOY, but DPOY candidate the year that he went down. So I'm definitely excited to see him play basketball again. And his bag was only getting a little bit better and better every single year. So, yeah, but here's the thing, man. Back to the whole purpose and title of this video. You know, I mentioned that Orlando's doing a KOT4Q rebuild right here, where they got assets, and you see all these assets that I just went through, and you can see the depth, right? Like, okay, you have to be a casual fan to not look at like that, like a full roster, this full Magic roster with Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac healthy, and of course envisioning them being, you know, the players that they are and playing and being healthy, then without being like, oh damn, like that's a good team. And the two flaws is that, one, the league is really talented, and two, you can't do it without a guy, like a generational guy. I genuinely do believe that, but they might get a couple of stars to blossom, is what I'm saying. But yeah, Orlando has gotten plenty of assets, right? Now, the other part of the KOT4Q model is that you flip them. Now, in real life, flipping your assets doesn't really work as well as in 2K, right? Of course, right? Overalls don't matter as much as, you know, building the proper team, hence LA. Built teams tend to do better than bought teams. But I mentioned the dilemma at guard. I mentioned John Isaac, and where does he fit, right? Because he's like somebody that it's stupid to not have in your starting lineup next to, like, if Paolo becomes a star, why would you not want to put a player like Jonathan Isaac out there to clamp everybody up? If we become a playoff team and we see Giannis in the playoffs, like, I don't hate that. Like, it's Giannis, but like, who else on paper is better to guard Giannis than Jonathan Isaac? But Franz Wagner is a more complete player. He's shown to be a better offensive player, and like, I mean, he's really shown to do most things well on the basketball court in some way, shape, or form. And that's why it's like, hey, Franz has got the potential to really, I mean, they both have the potential to blossom into elite players in this league, but it's like Franz has shown more strides to doing so than Jonathan Isaac has. Anyway, my point is that you may have too many assets. You might have to make a trade to condense talent, but the question is, what is that trade? Because you ultimately need defined stars to win games. And like, okay, so we're looking at the potential stars of like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Franz is probably not gonna become a star in this league. He might become a 20-point per game guy and a borderline all-star for sure. I think that is what Franz might become, but no more than that. Paolo will become a star, but will he become like a top 5 player? Me personally, I don't think so. And I'm a Magic fan. Like, I genuinely, this kid is special, man. He's going to be an all-star next year, right? And a huge, like, that's who we build this team around for sure. but I think he needs like a true co-star. It's time to make a trade similar to the trade that Cleveland just did to get Donovan Mitchell. Condense your talent a little bit and get more defined talent, more defined star players in that role, right? The thing is that trade doesn't really exist for Orlando right now. Donovan Mitchell might have been a guy. We'll see how Sacramento feels about De'Aaron Fox, but this is something that you can prepare for and say, okay, right, I'm looking at some of these teams, and you don't want like an aging star. You want somebody in their prime right now. A team that's like, you're not gonna get a generational dude, but you can get a star like a DeJounte Murray. I mean that's another example. But Donovan Mitchell. I always look at, man, like the day that like Shea wants out of OKC, which you talk about assets, they're up there too. I did genuinely forget about the potential of Oklahoma City's team. And to clarify, obviously we're not gonna get DeJounte Murray nor Donovan Mitchell. They both just found new teams. I'm just giving examples of like those are the caliber players that you can trade for, like when their teams are trying to blow it up or something like that, to condense your talent a little bit. And obviously, like I said, it's not really there for Orlando to make a trade on anybody right now, but it's something that you can monitor amongst many teams. There's a lot of talent in the league, and if you don't win, it's hard to win. And if you don't win with your core that you've had for a while, guys are going to want out, and organizations are going to want to blow it up, especially when you got guys like Wembanyama coming into the league. Yeah. But just to give you like a mock trade of one of these guys, like or what kind of trade package Orlando should give up. First of all, off the top of my head, some people that may like, just in the skill range, guys like I mentioned, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, De'Aaron Fox, like Zach LaVine type guys. Those are the type of trades you gotta make. We'll use Shai for now. Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., your next year's first round pick, another first round pick from a couple years down the line. If that doesn't get it done, maybe, just maybe, you can throw in Gary Harris, Terrence Ross. If it gets to it, you take one of the picks away, throw in like Jonathan Isaac. It would hurt, but you still have the pieces. That's the kind of trade that Orlando should make to condense their talent properly and get to maybe not the promised land, but complete a rebuild, right? Get that player next to Paolo. But the way that you get a player to come play for you is your team's got to make some noise. So you have to visibly be that piece away, right? And realistically, that trade or signing may not happen. And you honestly kind of just hope that your young talent can blossom enough to be a complete team. And you hope that, your potential future stars can, turn into that guy, and you guys can make some noise in the playoffs. The thing that I will always, hold higher with Orlando, and why I'm so much higher on Orlando's future than some of the other young teams that have good young pieces, and there's a lot of them. Every bad team, every young team that's been in a rebuild for the past year or two plus, I mentioned OKC, Detroit, Sacramento at this point, Indiana is kind of just begun another rebuild, and what's their names there? Houston, obviously. We'll see what San Antonio can scrape together, but all these teams have good young pieces, and the thing I see with Orlando is that this team can guard. Like, they're gonna be able to guard and rebound, and that's important down the stretch when we're talking about making the playoffs and being able to play in the playoffs. Those are teams that are built for the playoffs, teams that can guard, but you also got to be able to shoot the ball. So we'll see if they can fix that part, or at least get enough production from the perimeter and from the guard position offensively to where they're talented forwards such as Paolo and Franz Wagner can cook, specifically on the inside. And of course, it really all does just center around the growth and development of those two, I think specifically, and there are more guys that throw in that category. I think we'll see what kind of role Cole Anthony falls into, what kind of player Markelle is when he comes back. If Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, they both kind of feel like late bloomer type of players, guys that are just going to only get better with time. And so especially Jalen Suggs. So it's hard to give up on those guys now, but it'll be interesting to see how they progress over the course of this 82-game season, and of course going further. And I did mention that I was going to talk about Coach Mosley. I'm just going to keep it brief with him, okay? I like Coach Mosley as a guy. And I think what he's done over the course of, obviously last year was a full rebuild year, and I like the way that he had the team looking. And he's really good at developing young guys, helping them get their confidence and helping them find a role and a place in this league in general, like having an impact on the floor type deal, right? Most people that play, they're gonna have some kind of production, like not just put up empty, or like, empty stat line type deal. But that's really all it is for him. He's a development coach. We knew that. In terms of the X's and O's, in terms of like adjustments, scheme, and some of the lineups he puts out there, I'm not a fan. We got to get some more sets going. And yeah, our offense is stagnant. A lot of isolation ball, not utilizing, what we have to our best advantage. And maybe it's just the young guys not executing. But I haven't liked what I've seen offensively from that standpoint, and a lot of it you can tell is coaching. But yeah, I do think one of the more interesting things, especially in basketball, I think rebuilds in the NBA are different because they can happen so much quicker in other sports, and I genuinely do enjoy talking about these young teams. Like, I've enjoyed watching the Magic play like more than the days when we were competing type deal, which haven't been many. But yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So maybe we'll take a look at some of these other young teams, and if you did listen to me ramble about Orlando for this long, and you also enjoy the young teams, then let me know your thoughts, whatever. Yeah, bro, I'm back. Am I don't know, we'll find out later.